This is Support is Sexy, episode 226, with Andrea Pitter, owner and designer of Pandora Bridal. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I interview inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and their lessons to help you take your business and your life to the next level and create something sexy. Here we go. Hi everyone, welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm so excited to have you here. It just would not be the same without you. And today our guest is Andrea Pitter, and Andrea is the owner and designer at Pandora Bridal. Beautiful website, beautiful designs. You're going to want to check them out at pantorabridal.com. But I'm excited about this episode, not only because, of course, Andrea shares with us all that she knows about fashion, design, and the bridal industry, but she also, at least a theme for me, was this idea of moving beyond your fear. Even if you don't know exactly how it's going to work out, we can all relate, right? Or you don't know even exactly what you're doing, still the magic exists on the other side of your fears. So be sure to take a listen to this and see if you pick up on that theme as well. What Andrea also talks about is don't turn your creativity into a chore. How to say no to requests for discounts. Very important. In business, you have to learn how to let it go, how to upsell your customer in an exciting way. Also, as I mentioned, remembering the best part of the journey is on the other side of the fear. Andrea also shares how to find the right staff for your business, especially if you have a brick and mortar place. You're going to have staff there. Sometimes you're not there, but they are the first people to interface with your customer. Also, how to know when it's time to expand your business, the importance of educating your customer, how to promote your brand on social media, and Pandora Bridal has great Instagram, great social media overall, but the Instagram, you just need to indulge in it a little bit at Pandora Bridal. Also, social media do's and don'ts, and on Instagram, the importance of those first 9 photos. Something I never thought about, but be sure you listen out for that. She also talks about getting clear on your own definition of success and so much more. So I know you're going to love this episode. For more from Andrea and Pandora Bridal, go to supportissexypodcast.com. You'll find information about where the store is, where the studio is, how to get in touch with them, how to make an appointment if it's that time of life for you. You'll find it all and all the resources that Andrea mentions. Supportissexypodcast.com. Just search Andrea, Andrea, and you'll see it there. All right, so now, without further ado, Andrea Pitter. So, Andrea, thank you so much for being here for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm happy to have you here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
I was probably about 12 years old, and I realized I could sell things and people would give me money. So I think I was doing a fashion show, and I kind of taught myself how to sew. And I say kind of because that's exactly what it was. It was kind of. And I used to sell backpacks and donate the money to the school I was attending.
You used to sell backpacks?
Yeah, so I made backpacks out of bandanas. You know, the typical bandanas you buy at your neighborhood beauty supply store. I made backpacks and I would get custom orders. So some people wanted black on one side and blue on the other side, or white on one side. So I did a bunch of custom orders. They were probably like $5, but I would sell them and then I would donate the money.
How did you know, well, 2 things. How did you know to do something like that? I'm going to create this and sell this. Were you seeing that in your life at that time? You said you were about 12, right?
Yeah. So the school I was attending, which was Crown School for Law and Journalism, it's a junior high school. Well, it's not any longer. But we had a program similar to the Harry Potter books where we had a house system. And our goal was to volunteer to create funds for us to go on school trips or do certain projects. And I wanted to be president of my particular group. So I wanted to raise the most amount of money. I wanted to do the most amount of volunteer hours. And I figured, I could do something to do that. At the time, I wanted to attend the High School of Fashion Industries. And in order to do so, you needed to create a portfolio, and I wanted to take it a step further and teach myself how to sew so that they could not deny me acceptance. So I taught myself how to sew, and I realized that I could do that and benefit my school at the same time.
So after you sold the bandana backpacks, did you end up raising the most money? Were you successful?
I always raise the most money.
I had a feeling. I just had to ask for the record. Let the record show that I had a feeling you did a good job.
I was really good at hustling. I sold a lot of things. I don't think it was just backpacks. I remember selling photos with Santa. I had one of my friends who attended the same school dress up as Santa, and we sold pictures with Santa to all of the underclassmen, like the lower grades. And I remember ordering picture frames from our local 99-cent store, and having the pictures printed at Rite Aid and selling those pictures for $10 each and packaging them and sending them back home with the kindergartners.
Wow, you just had it in you.
Yeah, like I like to sell things, which I'm not a natural born salesperson, but I like to MacGyver a little bit.
Now, that's interesting that you don't think you're a natural born salesperson, because if someone were to ask me after our conversation, just from these first few minutes, I would say, oh, she's a natural salesperson. It just was always in her. What makes you think
I like to create.
Okay.
I like to create, and I kind of think that if you create constantly without receiving anything from it, because you get like a natural joy, of course, but without receiving anything from it, you start to hate what it is that you're creating. And it's funny because I didn't ever really think about it like that, but one of my high school teachers, Miss James, I remember in about 10th grade, I was making a few garments and I was telling her the price that I was selling them for, and she said, you keep selling those garments so cheaply, you're gonna hate what you do. And I sure did.
Really? Now, was she saying because you didn't get you won't feel like you've gotten some sense of reward from creating it?
Exactly. And it starts to feel like a chore because you're almost giving it away. And so I kind of believe that people shouldn't be so eager to just give their talents away unless there's a trade. I don't necessarily always think that money is the trade, because I've gotten the best experiences by working for free. But it was just free in dollars. It wasn't free in anything else. So I got a lot of things out of it. I just didn't make money.
Thank you for that. And thank you to your teacher, because that's such a great way to look at things, especially for a creative person. Because I think, I won't project that. I know as a creative person, sometimes I struggle to say this is going to cost, etc., or put value on our work, right? So
exactly.
Yeah, the way you just mentioned it, it's like it'll end up being something that you hate if you don't feel like you're getting something of value too, whether it's money or something else.
Exactly.
Very good. And is that something that you've carried with you on into your business?
I try. Sometimes it gets a little bit difficult because you have to value your work, and then you have to allow people to understand why you value it a certain way, because people are very quick to undervalue you all the time.
Right.
But I always believe in educating people when it comes to them making a purchase from you, because people just see what it is that they want at a surface level. They don't always understand how much work it took to create what it is that you're providing, whether it's a service or whether it's a product. They don't always see the behind the scenes. And so many entrepreneurs, and especially creative people, they're underpaid by a lot.
By a lot.
Yeah. And they've done it to themselves. So it's like no one else is to blame, because the truth of the matter is that you're not obligated to sell yourself short. Like, people will ask you for a discount. You're allowed to say no. Like, you're actually allowed to say, I'm not going to sell myself short. We do that a whole lot, where people go, oh, well, I didn't really want to pay that much. And it's okay for you to say, oh, I'm sorry. Well, that's how much it costs.
Right. And did you have to become empowered in that way over time, or did you still have, like you said, that sense of the lesson from your high school teacher that I'm going to have to do this no matter how comfortable it might be? I
mean, I still have to do it. I mean, I run a business all the time, and day to day, and my staff will give me a call and they go, a bride came in and she's just wondering if she can have a discount. And and my first question is, well, what does she want a discount for? Because if they can answer that logically, then why not? But no one can ever answer that logically.
It's just because for them.
Yeah, just because. Like, tell me what it is that you've done to deserve a discount, because my staff is working here 8 hours a day. By you asking for a discount, you're telling me that I should only pay my staff a percentage of what they're worth.
Right.
So they're getting paid for 8 hours. So should I only pay them for 6 because you wanted to pay less?
Right. The discount passes on to everybody and not in a good
Yeah.
way. Very smart.
Yeah.
I love that's great advice. Now, where did you grow up? Did you grow up in New York? You mentioned Rite Aid.
Oh, yeah. Is that a New York thing?
Yeah, Rite Aid, Dwayne Reed. No, okay. Very cool.
This makes a lot of sense because every time I leave the state, I'm always looking for a Rite Aid or.
And they're like, no, it's a CVS or something else,
Yeah,
right?
I'm like, I don't want CVS. I mean, I have nothing against them, but I want Rite Aid. But yeah, I grew up in New York. I grew up in Brooklyn. I'm a Brooklyn girl by heart. I'm Caribbean raised. So my parents are Jamaican, and I've spent a lot of time in Jamaica, but I've pretty much been in Brooklyn my entire life.
So what were you, kind of gave us an idea, but what was a young Andrea like?
I feel like I might have been the same way.
The same way?
Yeah, I and it gets weird because I feel like people always try to argue about it and say you never really know who you are. And for me, I don't feel like I've always had this constant struggle of trying to figure out who I am. Sometimes it's a struggle to be okay with it. But I'm pretty much the same way. I've always been pretty outgoing and ambitious. I'm a social introvert by nature. I don't know what has caused me to be that way. So people always meet me and they go, "Wow, you're so fun to be around." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I really like to be by myself."
Right. Exactly. I'd really like to be home on my couch reading a book.
Yeah, like if I could hide right now, I would. So I've always been that way, like super outgoing in front of people and with people. And, I get to seize the moment and have a good time when that moment and opportunity is available. But when it's over for me. And I've always been that way. When I was at school, I had a good time at school. And then when I was home, I really enjoyed being at home.
Very
but
good.
I was super creative.
Yeah.
Creative and ambitious and loud and stubborn and all of the things that make me.
I love that. And it sounds like you always knew that, or I shouldn't say it sounds like you always knew. Did you always know that fashion was going to be a part of your life? Is it something that you thought you wanted to do when you grew up in some way?
I guess to some degree, growing, I have been doing this so long that I forget that I've been doing this while I was growing up. So it's like I've been doing this since I was 12, and you forget that like 12 to 18 is you growing up, and even after that you're still growing up. So I kind of forget. So I've been doing this. I kind of threw myself into it. But prior to that, there's little things that I taught myself to do. Like I taught myself to draw and I taught myself to sew. So it's like little things that I didn't necessarily think, okay, I'm going to be a designer. But by the time I was 12, I knew that's what I was going to do.
Who were some of your greatest influences growing up?
I could easily say my grandfather. He was a fisherman in Jamaica, but he spent majority of my lifetime living with me and my family. I think he was one of the most strong-willed individuals and really smart and street smart, because I'm super street smart. I have so much street cred. You wouldn't believe me.
All right, for the street cred. I love it.
But he was super savvy, and it wasn't until maybe I was in high school that I realized that my grandfather was illiterate. He didn't know how to read or write. And I spent my entire childhood with someone who I did not realize, this man helped me with homework, had no idea how to read and write. It's like when you look back and you try and figure out, well, how were you able to do that?
Right.
Like how? And so I think he's one of the people who I can say almost single-handedly, but my mother would kill me, single-handedly inspired me, because there's always a will to a way. He was learning to read and write by the time I was about 15, but he passed away when I was 17. But he went to school. He had a tutor, and he had someone come every single day to teach him how to read and write. And it's funny because there's little things that you think about in your childhood that's like, well, that makes sense now. I remember taking him to the Notary Republic, or is it public? I don't know what they do, but
Notary
they notarize
Republic.
things.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Jamaican. I mess things up a lot.
You're so funny.
But I remember taking him there, and they told him to sign his name, and it took him very long to sign his name. And do you know, this whole time I just thought he was old. Like the whole time I just thought he was old, and he didn't know. Like it just took him a really long time. It was because he couldn't write.
Wow.
And someone trained him to write his name. That's why it took really long for him to do it. But yeah, he taught me how to be savvy. He taught me how to say no, and he taught me to let things go, because sometimes it is what it is. And if in business, you really need to know when to just let it go.
Right. How amazing. And such a survivor. So many people, who are like that, but still, like you said, were so smart and knew how to do everything else in order to make it.
Yeah, like I learned so many things even after his death. Like, he got kidnapped at sea. Like, he was, he was
Kidnapped?
Yeah, he was taken by pirates at sea.
Was he in the Navy?
No, he
Oh,
was
as a fisherman.
And,
Yes.
yeah, and his boat went too far into, I forgot where he was, but his boat got taken, and the Jamaican government had to pay their ransom.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. I learned that about 3 weeks ago.
Oh, really? This isn't even something that you learned. I thought maybe it was a story he told you growing up.
No, I feel like parents like to forget things.
And you're like, hello, I would have wanted to know that story.
Yeah, for sure. But I got so many other stories from him. But single-handedly, I can say that he has inspired me the most, because he just taught me how to survive.
Right. That's amazing. Now, what would you say, or when would you say was the point that you decided, okay, it's going into the bridal business. That's what I'm going to do as my actual business. It sounds like, as you said, you knew at a point it was going to be fashion, but why bridal?
So when I was 19, I was attending the Fashion Institute of Technology, and I was selling my designs on Etsy. And they had something called Alchemy, where people could put in a request for items. And I remember someone putting a request for a white cotton dress, and I thought nothing of it. And I lowballed myself, and I put in, I don't know what I told her, probably maybe $300 or $400. I was like, I'll make this dress. And it was cotton, and I was like, why not? And she sent me back pictures. It was her wedding day. And I was like, wow, I made my first wedding dress. And soon enough, I just kept getting wedding dress requests, and majority of the people who were ordering dresses from me, they lived in Australia, or they lived in the UK or Canada, but they definitely didn't live here, and they definitely didn't look like me. And I wouldn't know what these people looked like until they sent me pictures, sometimes years later. And remember, Skype is fairly new,
right?
And I've been doing this for fairly long. So it was all via email, and I realized, oh wow, people want nice things, and they want them for me. So I should give it to them. So that's kind of when I realized I should do bridal. And I don't want to say everything else, because you can never learn too much, but I already was self-taught, and I was pursuing my degree in fashion design, for whatever that means, sportswear, athletic wear, ready to wear. So I was already pursuing those things, and I wanted to do something that kind of forced me to teach myself something else.
Okay, so what was your first step then when you decided to open up your own business?
Well, I had already established my business in 2009. So I went and declared myself a sole proprietor. And that was my freshman year of college.
Mm-hmm.
No, that was either freshman year or sophomore year of college. I declared myself a business, whether I was doing business or not. I still declared myself a business, just because you want to kind of be ahead of the game. And I was making dresses for whoever. It didn't really matter what it was. It just mattered if they were paying me.
Mm-hmm. Did you change your prices at that point?
At that point, yes, but I always kind of slowly changed my prices. I remember in high school when I made everyone's prom dresses, I had one set number. Like, the garment did not matter what it looked like. Like, this is what I was charging you. I never even looked at what they wanted. I was like, okay, well, it's this much.
Right.
Like, I had a set number, but I started to be a bit more business savvy. Even then, it was slow, because as a sophomore in college whose parents are very proud of them and don't have a problem helping to support their life, like I didn't pay rent. I took care of myself outside of the typical adult bills, like adulthood. Like, I didn't have to do that part. So I wasn't necessarily charging my worth. I was just charging. Mm-hmm. But when I graduated college, I had a few internships under my belt, and I started to work in the industry. And I had a few jobs. I took a few jobs. I quit a few jobs. The last job I quit, I kind of knew, well, I have clients. I was always working for myself full time while working for someone else full time. So I would go to work 9 to 5 and work for myself 6 to midnight. like every day.
The
Religious
moonlighting
space.
thing, right?
Yeah, like
But you committed to it, right?
Yeah, and it when you're young, it doesn't bother you as much.
Right. So
Like,
true.
I could work till 3 o'clock in the morning, despite the fact that I had just worked at 9 to 5. But once I quit my last job, it helped that I didn't really like the people. They weren't paying me enough, and I wasn't super committed to that particular job. I kind of knew I was going to try and do my own thing, but I also knew that if I needed to go back into the industry, I would. That was in 2013. And I think I got sick at work, which was normal because I didn't want to be there. So somehow I ended up sick.
Stress.
Yeah, stress. I had a lot of symptoms that could tell me I was a lot of things. but I went to work one day after not being there for a little while, and I was like, I think I'm done. Like, I don't want to be here. And I danced my way out. And I remember my employer, after I danced out of there, like I literally danced, he called me back. He said, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm fine." He was like, "I just watched you dance." I was like, "It's not intentional. I'm just really happy it's over." And I went to Paris for a week or a week and a half. And I came back, and reality set that I didn't have a job. And at that point, I started to hustle. Like, I was making garments whether people wanted them or not, and I was going to figure out how to sell them. Maybe a few months down the line, because I quit my job in March and I opened my store in October. A few months down the line, I realized that I didn't know what I was waiting on. Checked my bank account and then realized that I was waiting on money because I didn't have any.
That'll do it.
Yeah, that will. What a reality check. Try and open a store without any money. It's a bad idea. So I checked. I decided I was going to go look for a retail space. And my boyfriend at the time, he was like, "Okay, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, how are you going to, well, he was my boyfriend at the time. We got married now. Like,
okay.
Look at that. We still like each other. But, at the time, he was just like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, you don't have any money, but yet you want to look at a retail space. And I'm like, positivity manifests positivity. Like, that's all that it can do. So let's just go look. I mean, what's wrong with looking? It's free. So we kept on looking, and we found a space, and I decided, okay, well, I need money. And I called every single client that I had already worked for. And I had clients in my Rolodex already that I was still working for, like, at the time. And I was like, "Do you guys need garments? I know there's a party coming up. Like, what's event? What event is happening?" And so I just ended up taking on as many orders as people would entertain. And I was able to put my security deposit down and my first month's rent. And I decided I would figure the rest out. And fortunately enough, I had landlords that really believed in me, or either they believed in me or they really wanted to get that space off their hands.
Right. And where is the space again? Is it still the same space?
Yeah, it's the same space. It's on the corner of Rogers Avenue and President Street.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been there now for almost 4 years. And we opened up another retail space right across the street.
Wow.
So now we have two stores, and we opened that second location less than a year after, or was it a full year? I think it might have been a full year after we opened the first space. Like, we quickly grew out of it. So now we're quickly growing out of this one.
Wait, I have so many questions. Oh my goodness. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, so positivity manifests positivity. I'm going to remember that from this day forward. I might give you credit. I might give you attribution when I say it. That's great. Now, when you were looking for the space, did you have any idea or have in mind what you thought it would look like, or was it just, I need a space?
Well, I knew it would be very raw because I didn't have any money to do anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of hustled my landlords a little bit. I'm like, "So what can you fix? Like, what is it that you're willing to put into the space?" And so I got them to change the floors, and I was like, "Okay, can I pick the floors and you install them?" So I was doing a lot of hustling, and I knew that there wasn't going to be much. One, because it was a very small space, and I wanted to put as many dresses in there as possible. And I was trying to figure out how to do as much in there as I possibly could. So it was the style was very clean. There was maybe 2 little sofa chairs, and dresses, and a mannequin, and that was it.
That's all you need, just a space.
Yeah, just a space. We did a little with a lot. I remember I had my boyfriend painting stripes in the bathroom. I was like, there's going to be one unique thing in this space. And it was the bathroom. I had him paint gold stripes in that bathroom. And I had him put a chandelier. He was like, you don't need a chandelier in the bathroom. I'm like, there's going to be one thing. one thing.
So when you found out the amount of the rent or the down payment, that's when you decided, okay, I'm going to hustle and sell as many pieces as I can to get this amount of money. Is that how you worked it as far as your goal?
Well, I know I needed more, because you can't ever just go into it like, I just need the rent.
Right.
So I think I had enough for 1 month's rent in my bank account when I decided I wanted a store. I said, I have 1 month's rent. Okay, they're not going to give me a space on 1 month's rent. You need to give them 3 months up front. So I said, I have 1 month. I have to figure out how to get the rest. I called up every single client. Some clients I was already working for. They already had orders in progress. And I was like, so what else do you need?
Mm-hmm.
I remember you said you're going here. Okay, I think you might need something. I was making accessories or making like extra things like, I just thought that this might look nice. And so I had it just in case you wanted to buy it.
Right. Just in case you wanted to buy it.
Just in case, no one ever needs more than one scarf. Like I was making things out of excess fabric. I remember going back to my alma mater and selling turbans, and I sold a lot of turbans. I used every excess piece of fabric that I had in my studio, and I made turbans, and I sold a lot. In less than a year, I easily sold about 1,000 turbans.
Wow.
I was selling turbans on the train.
Was that, wow, I love it. You're the best. So was it that you, with turbans, was that the trend it still is, but was it a trend at the time you just decided, I'm going to do turbans and I'm going to go back? And I ask because I'm just trying to think of how to inspire people to think in the same way of what can I create in order to,
People were wearing turbans, but they were very plain and boring. And I was like, we could spice this up a little bit. So I started to look through all the prints that I had, because at the time I was a fabric hoarder. I still am. And I went through the closets and rooms of fabric that I had, and I started pulling things. And I'm like, okay, well, this little thing cannot cost me any money. It can only make me money. Like, I cannot put any money into this. And so I used all excess. And so I had to make sure I made a lot out of a little. And then at that point, I used up all the scrap that I had. So I had to buy more fabric. And then I was taking orders. Like, I was like, okay, well, if you want custom stuff, you have to buy six turbans. And somehow people were buying, like, you have one head, you don't need 6 turbans.
Right. But you didn't tell them that.
Nope,
right.
Because that's not smart.
Right.
So I was selling 6 turbans at a time if people wanted me to do something specific. If they said, well, I really want a red one with studs, I would go, okay, well, I can definitely do that for you, but you have to buy 5 others. Wow. And they go, okay, just mix them up. I'm like, no problem. And so I would do that, and then I created this thing called the Cocoon. And I was going to like designer fairs and setting up shop. We had a pop-up shop for that entire summer before we opened the store. I was doing a pop-up shop on Fluker Street. And I would invite everybody, and I was selling dresses, summer dresses, for $50. These were things that I can sew fairly fast. So we were selling maxi dresses and turbans and, buy a maxi dress, get a free turban. Like, I had all the gimmicks, all the gimmicks that you could think of, I had those. And I would have people coming in and buying these printed cocoons. And I sold a whole lot of cocoons. I almost wish I could go back to cocoons. Wedding dresses are hard. Cocoons, not so much.
Now, a cocoon, what is it? What is that? Try to explain it to us. I know it's not visual, but what does the cocoon look like?
It's a shawl, shrug, sweater. And people love them, whether you were young or old. Some people wore them as beach cover-ups. People who were pregnant, so it was very maternity somehow. People who just really like that boho goddessy look. People who were very chic and like the oversized, like anybody could wear it. It literally was a thing. And so I made them in black for people who were like very New Yorker. And then I would make them in prints for people who were going on vacation. And at one point during our fair, I remember having like hundreds, because at that point, like we're gonna just make 100, 150 or so. And I was like, we have to sell them, and we have to sell them in 2 weeks. Wow. And we sold them in 2 weeks.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. So now when you get this, so you found your space, you've sold what you needed to sell and have the money. Did you have any input or advice on what to negotiate as far as the space? Because I know, with retail spaces, leases and how long you should stay or agree to and that kind of thing. Did you have any advice then?
So no, because no one around me ever opened a store. My mom was scared. Like, she was scared. She was like, this is crazy. Like, I don't know why you're doing this, but you know, you're going to do what you want to do anyway. So I'm not going to stop you. I remember going into the meeting with my landlord, the first meeting. I was late, and I don't like to be late, and I don't like when people are late, but I was definitely late, and I had my dog with me because I took her to the vet, and we got caught in the rain, and we walked into this meeting soaked. And I walk in, and the first thing they said is, "You're late. You shouldn't have bothered to come." And I was thinking, well, you guys are about to take my money. So if I'm late, it should be fine. But I realized quickly then that doesn't actually matter. I already set an impression, but my dog saved the day because they loved her. And we spoke about the space, and they offered to give me a ride home. And they started to ask me a bunch of questions. Well, do you have a space? Do your parents have a space? Do your parents own a home? And I thought they were just making conversation until I realized they were trying to figure out, if I fail, who was going to give me money.
Right.
And we went into the next meeting where I would actually sign the lease, and that's where everything was being discussed and hashed out. And I remember the broker saying, okay, well, you have to pay a broker fee. I said, you didn't do anything. He said, I did. I got you the space. I said, I walked on the space and I called the number. You didn't do anything. And he was like, but you still have to pay the fee. I said, I don't have to pay anything. Tell the landlords to pay the fee. They hired you. And like, I didn't want him not to make money. I just didn't want him to make money for me. Because I didn't hire him. Like, that's just the truth of the matter. I didn't hire him. I called the number on his space, and I took it.
Right.
So,
and they have to let you know if there's a fee for the customer.
Yes, they should have told me that well before we went into closing. So we did that, and I think this might have been the second to last meeting, because they were like, well, we need you to do a 10 to 15 year lease. I was like, I'm only 23. Like, that's more than half of my life.
That's what I was figuring. They probably were going to want to lock you in forever.
They tried, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I've only been on this earth for 23 years. Like, I can't make a commitment for 10 years. And so I said, okay, how about let's do 5 years? It was like, 5 years is too short. I said, well, 5 years is all I got. But we can put a good guy's guarantee in there. And they were like, what do you know about good guy's guarantee? I'm like, I know that I need it to be for 2 years. And they were like, we can't do that. I'm like, we can. We have to do something. You want this space taken. And they were like, okay, fine, we'll do a good guy's guarantee. And for those of you who don't know what that means, it ultimately means that you will pay your rent on time and accordingly. And in the event that you want to leave the space, you will provide them with at least a certain amount of notice. So I put in my lease about 3 months notice that I would leave. So it wouldn't be that I would just not pay my rent. I would be paying my rent, and they would know that my plan is to leave the space.
Wow.
So within a certain amount of time. So,
and how did you know about the good guy's guarantee? Was that something you researched?
Yeah, so I looked up everything that I could possibly see in a lease, and so that nothing would be surprising to me, because I really wanted to do this by myself. So I didn't take my mom into the meeting. I think I took my boyfriend to one of the meetings just because he's big, and I wanted him to kind of look like he would have my back, even though he didn't know anything about that either. Right. So I brought him, like, you know, people are intimidated by black men every now and then. So
just to let them know you're not alone, right?
Yeah, I'm just like, you know, this might work in my favor this time. So I brought him in with me, and so we negotiated a whole lot. Like, they didn't want to do anything to the space in regards to fixing it. I was like, you know, you're supposed to deliver a white box. They were like, well, what do you know about a white box? I'm like, I know that this is not a white box. The walls were orange. There were holes in the wall. The tiles were black and white, and they weren't even evenly distributed. Like, there was a lot happening in that space, and I was like, I can't deal. Like, there's an awning that was falling off. Like, I saw a lot of potential in that space, remembering what it looked like. Like, I remember what it looked like. It was really bad. It was really, really bad.
So this is in October, and you started this whole journey in March, right? 2013, was it?
That's when I quit my job, but I didn't actually think of opening the store until about July.
So between July and October.
Yeah, so I opened the store officially on October 27th. That was my move-in date. I signed my lease on August 15th.
Now, Andrea, did you have any fear during this time? Just for people listening who think, oh, I would have been so afraid at 23 to do all of the things that you did, especially a lot of it on your own.
I had a lot of fear, but the thing about that, and I don't want to sound all philosophical, but the thing about
No,
fear, and I think Will Smith said it best the other day, that all the most amazing things are on the opposite side of it.
that's right.
And like being like, it's kind of like you're gonna be afraid. You're gonna be afraid if you didn't do it too. So it's like people, we worry about things that we're never even gonna do anyway. So it's kind of like, well, I can do it and still worry about it, or I can not do it and worry about the fact that I didn't do it. Like either way, I'm still in the same position.
Right.
So I kind of just did it, and at that point I exhausted a lot of options. Like I worked as a head designer for a manufacturing company where I was literally a sweatshop of designs. Like I was doing juniors apparel, children's apparel, men's suits, children's dresses, women's, juniors. Like I was doing everything under the sun. And then I quit and worked for a high-end custom women's line. And then I quit that job. And then I went to work for a pets company where I designed puppy clothing and puppy products for Barbies and Hot Wheel and
Wow.
Run DMC. Like I did a whole lot of things, and I kind of was like, well, none of this is sticking.
But it's all great experience for what you ended up doing, right? You like crammed in all this great experience.
I crammed in a lot, but I always tell people, especially high schoolers, if you feel like you know what kind of path you're trying to travel on, you should work on it. So instead of applying for a job at McDonald's, why not apply at a job in an office? Like it doesn't have to be a glamorous job, but neither is McDonald's. Mm-hmm. So why not make your resume look relevant? So in high school, my first internship was Burn Mom and Bullock, which was a bridal company. And I didn't even know that I was necessarily going to do bridal, but that was my first internship. And then I worked for Donna Rico, who only gave me an internship because she thought I was going to go to her alma mater, which I definitely did not go to. And then I worked for Tracy Reese, and then I was a school teacher. Like I taught after school. I taught design. Mm-hmm. So I made sure my resume was relevant to what it is that I wanted to do, so that I didn't have to do other things.
Right. And even though you didn't know, well, you knew the overall industry, but like you said, you worked for a bridal company, but it still was within the realm of what you wanted to do. So people shouldn't get caught up on it being exact, right?
Yeah, we get way too caught up. Even I feel like there's so much that we get caught up on. I know this is probably irrelevant, but like I love to travel. Mm-hmm. And my favorite thing to do is find a deal to go somewhere. And I always say, like, I know that I want to travel, so it shouldn't matter where I'm going. So when someone calls me and they go, hey, I found a trip, because I remember everyone went to Dubai. Do you remember that?
Yes,
when went to
like
Dubai?
People were going over the weekend. It was crazy.
Yes, I was one of those people, and it didn't matter where that plane ticket was taking me. It was $180 I was going.
Right.
So it's the same kind of thing. Like I knew I wanted to travel, so I went. It didn't matter where. You knew you want to be a designer, so take any design job. Like that's all that really matters is, are you doing something? Are you being proactive?
Yes. Now, with your retail space, in a time when most people are either closing up retail shops and opening things online, or just going online in the first place, what for you has been the success? Because you said now you have a place across the street and you're outgrowing those places. How do you get people into the store, or do you have to get people into the store? Is it more so a studio?
It's both. Both of our locations, one of our locations is the studio, but it has a storefront. And then the other space is primarily our store that we meet our clients at. It's every single day you have to work on getting people to come in. You have to be creative. But every single day I count my lucky stars, because people don't have to love me. Mm. Because what I've learned about my business is people don't just love my business, they love me. And I'm very grateful for it, because I'm hard to love.
And people, I don't think you're hard to love. I don't accept that. You seem very lovable.
It gets difficult, you know.
But they say people buy from people that they like.
They do, and they love my staff. And I tell my girls, like, you know, I call them staff when I'm working, or if I'm doing an interview, or if I'm in a formal setting. But they're more of my sisters, if anything. And I always tell them, like, you know, I don't hire people I don't like. Mm-hmm. Ever. I don't care how much experience they have. No one's going to make the job that I decided I'm going to create for myself a living hell.
Right.
So I don't hire people I don't like, and I don't hire people that aren't smarter than me in some capacity. So they have to do something better than me. It doesn't have to be everything, but they have to be able to do one thing better than I do. They have to be nice, because normally people come and they do see me often, but I am not the first person they see when they come to my business. I'm never the first person.
It's your staff.
Exactly. And that experience needs to be amazing from start to finish. And I always tell them, like, you know, customer service does not end after they give you their money. It doesn't end there. And I can't say sometimes we it's not like we don't mess up, because every business messes up, but it's kind of how did you redeem yourself?
Right. Now, what would you say as far as hiring? As you said, they have to do something better than you. What's your tip for hiring a staff or people to work for you? How do you determine that, for example, they can do something, at least one thing better than you?
Well, when you're talking to them in an interview, people normally either give you way too much information or not enough. There's normally not like this gray area of information, and you can kind of read between the lines, I think. I can't say like one of my favorite employees, but all of my employees are my favorite. But Kristen, who had basically been working here before there was a here to work at, she was just amazing with people. Like, people loved her because she was kind and welcoming and very genuine. And Kadeen, who is new, she's about a year in now, she's very organized, and I am not. I'm not that girl. I know where my things are, but like, you won't ever. Like, you will never know where to find my things. But yeah, they're organized. They do these things better than me. While I'm nice and I'm friendly, I'm not necessarily warm. And when it comes to bridal, people do want that warmth, and they provide that. And it's nice to see, because I know what I can't give. I can't give that. It would be a lie and it won't be genuine, but they do.
And also because, as you mentioned earlier, there's a part of you that sounds like you're an introvert, so you handle the energy differently.
Yes. And so, like I said, once people come in, I have a really good time with them, but I'm not necessarily the warmth that they want.
It's
like,
so smart to realize
but my
that
hugs don't feel that way.
My hugs don't feel warm and cozy like Michelle Obama's, as I imagine.
I don't think so. I've never experienced one.
I know. So with the space, how did you know then when it was time to grow? Just for people listening who are thinking about, you know, when it's time to grow your space, was it just you were outgrowing it because of number of dresses and space, physical space you needed, or was it something else?
I mean, it was getting smaller and smaller. And what we were doing was we were selling dresses from the store, but my studio was still at home. And my home wasn't too far from the store, but if I wanted to work half the day at home, I would have to come back and meet clients later on. So I was literally walking back and forth, because, you know, when you open a store, you can't take cabs back and forth. Right. That's expensive. You can't do that. So I would be walking literally back and forth maybe 4 or 5 times a day. I got really skinny. I'm still skinny now, but I got really skinny walking back and forth. But I did it 4 or 5 times. Like, I would walk to work in the morning, and if I had a client at 10 o'clock, I would see them, and I would walk back to my studio maybe at 11:30, and then I would walk back at 1 o'clock, and then I would just do this never-ending cycle of walking back and forth. And I was like, you know, me spending so much time walking is costing me money, whether I think so or not. Time is money, and I had to figure out what I valued more, my actual time or actual money. And I realized that I could be making a lot of money if I utilize my time much better than walking back and forth to the store.
Now, did the space open up, or how did you find the space right across the street?
This space had been looking in my face for a good year and a half. It's the same space that was open before I even opened my store. So it was just sitting there, and I was curious about it, but not curious enough. And at one point I remember asking about it, but I just wanted to know who was moving in next to me. Right. So I would just be asking questions until one day I was like, well, you know, how much is this thing? And it was way more than I wanted to pay. Maybe
different
double.
landlords?
Different landlords. And yeah, they were different. Even their energy was different. They liked me, but their energy was a lot different. And I realized I was going to be dealing with 2 different people. So I remember trying to negotiate with them. This time it was much more difficult. I think I lost my innocence maybe. No. but it was much more difficult. We did end up negotiating on some things, but that one was way more difficult than the first one.
So now are you looking for another space? You mentioned that you feel like you're outgrowing that too. Are you looking for a space that maybe combines the both of them?
We are looking for another space, but I had purpose when I opened the store. And so it gets a little difficult to actually think about the idea of moving.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we're necessarily going to move when we open another store. We just might open another store. Our future, there's like so many routes to where I want to get. So, yeah, I don't think that there's any one particular thing I'd like to do. I don't know if it's going to be like one store that houses both our studio and our store, or it'll just be another location.
So tell us how bridal is different than the quote unquote regular fashion industry. What are the ways that you have seen it different? Is it because it's seasonal, or is it, as I mentioned to you, I think before we started recording, I used to work at brides.com, so I know a little bit about it, but certainly not as much as you.
Okay, so bridal is the way the seasons work is a little bit different. We show in October and April generally. Bridal is we normally release our collection and it's not available to a bride for almost 6 months to a year. That's normally how it works. That's not really how it works here. So that's not our norm. We've kind of created the way we want to work and not allow the industry to change. Sorry, there's something in my background. We've kind of allowed ourselves to create the way we want to work instead of following industry standards. Bridal is also different because you actually should be shopping for your wedding dress 7 to 14 months in advance. Whereas when you just want a pretty dress, you can go in the store and buy it. Like, mm-hmm. You can't do that. Bridal is a specialty thing, and it's really important that brides remember that, like, what's important to you. Is the experience important to you? Is just the dress important to you? Like, there's so many things that dictate your bridal experience, and we ask our brides when they come in, like, what's really important to you? Like, how do you want to feel during this process? And some are like, I just want a really good deal. And that's normally not our bride who's only is really thinking of, the cost. And some are like, I really just want to feel amazing because this only happens once in my lifetime. And I'm like, that's normally our bride, because how they feel is really important.
Now, do you tell the ones who say, sorry to interrupt, do you tell the ones who say, it's just about getting a deal or that kind of thing, and you said that that's probably not our bride, do you tell them at that point, or do you just have that in mind at that point, this is probably not going to work out? How do you, it's almost like fire your customer, how do you?
We're super honest here, because most of what we do here is education, because we want the one bride who came here to go tell her friends, well, okay, this is what you don't want to do when you go dress shopping. But we handle everything with tact, or at least we make effort to. When a bride tells us that, her budget, this is her budget, and it doesn't necessarily fit our dresses, or I'm only concerned about how much a dress costs. I don't really care about anything else. We let them know that we're providing an experience for them, and they know that when they walk through the door, because they've gotten champagne, and I'm sure that they're not getting champagne everywhere else where they go. So we've already kind of set the tone of the appointment, and we talk to them and we let them know, well, we're gonna pull these dresses for you. You're gonna be open-minded. You're gonna be opinionated. You're gonna let us know what you love, what you don't like, and we educate them on why dresses take so much time. We tell them our fabrics are custom, and a lot of them we get made and we get them imported here. And a lot of them I sit down and take the time to create the textile. So when they understand that, they're like, oh, she put a lot of love in this. Let me try and love this experience a little more.
So the education is key.
It's key in any business. So sometimes I don't understand, like I said, I recently got married, and a lot of people go, well, the wedding industry is just expensive. It's not. These are people who take the time out of their lives to create a very special moment for you. And being that it's that one moment that only happens one time, it's not like their customers are repeat buyers. So you have to keep in mind that they've taken years, months, whatever it is, to perfect an item for you, or a service for you, or whatever it is. They've taken a lot of time to perfect this one thing so that you feel a certain way on one moment that they will never be able to duplicate ever again. That's why these things are expensive. It's not because weddings are just expensive. Like, that's not real. That's like a myth. Like, the wedding industry is not expensive. It's a lie. And so I didn't always understand that. And when I got married, like, my videographer's like, okay, well, video is this much, and photographers are like, well, photography is this much. And I'm like, dang.
Now you realize, right?
Yeah, I'm like, well, you guys put as much love into your craft as I do, I guess.
Right.
So you understand it a little bit more, and I understood that I needed vendors who took care of me and cared about the product that they were going to give me even after the wedding day. And it cost.
Right.
It's not free.
And as you said, your experience usually with your customer is for about, what, a 6-month period on average?
On average, it's about 9 months.
Okay. So like you said, it's not just coming in, buying a dress and leaving. It's an experience during that time.
And oftentimes we tell our brides, if you don't like us, this is not for you because you were stuck with us for this amount of time.
Right, exactly.
Like, we actually say it.
Don't beat around the bush, I'm sure.
Nope.
Excellent. So speaking of the education piece, I know you also started doing courses with Eddie, or not courses isn't the word, workshops and that kind of thing to sort of share your experience with other people. What has that been like and why was that important to you?
So Gina represents me. She's my publicist and also a really good friend that I met in college. And she asked me to do a workshop on social media. And for me, it was important to me because people always go, well, how did you get a following? Or do you buy your followers? And I'm like, well, you can't buy people. Like, what do you think this is? Like, you can't, I mean, you could, I guess, right? But I'm like, it's super important for me to connect because my product is not everything, because if this was all to fall, the only thing left is me. And I have to connect with my following and engage them and hope that they would want to come to the store, whether it's to meet me or to feel me, which I guess, because people say that all the time. They go, I know you weren't here, but I felt your presence. And I'm like, well, I'm glad you did, because that's how we set up our store. So it was really important for me to let other entrepreneurs know that even if you are not the face of your business, you are still selling yourself every single step of the way. Because just like when things happen in large corporations, when things slip and everything hits the fan and people go, well, how did that happen? Everyone goes, well, who is running it? Who's behind it? Who's allowing these things to happen? Who makes those decisions? And even if it wasn't you, you still okayed it. Or it still happened.
The responsibility is on you.
No matter what. Yeah. And like I said, things happen because they definitely have happened here. I've heard my employees say things to clients that I wouldn't necessarily have phrased that way. And I'm like, oh, you can't say that. So it's like, it happens. It's not always intentional. And sometimes it's the worst thing that we're exceptionally honest here. We're exceptionally honest people. And it's not always great because some people don't receive it as well. But at least we were genuine.
Right. And they'll know that no matter what.
Exactly. Now they'll go, maybe she's just not a cup of tea.
Right. And maybe with social media, would you say that has been a primary driver for you as far as marketing? Or
it has. As far as marketing, a large portion of our followers actually come to the store, and a large portion of sales are driven from social media. And so knowing how to use your social media is super important. And even when I'm not the one posting or sharing, I tell the girls, well, read out loud. Does it sound like something I would say? Like, does it sound consistent to the things that we normally post? People ask us to post things all the time, and I go, this is my following. Like, I'm not here to necessarily share your work, and not that I'm selfish, because I don't necessarily think that it's selfish for you to make sure you're promoting your brand on your social media to your following. You've created your tribe ultimately, so you need to be very conscious and take care of your tribe. If your tribe is saying, I want to see pretty dresses all the time, there is no reason why you're promoting someone's mixtape. Right. There's no reason for it.
What would you say was your top tip for the workshop with social media for people who have a business or want to launch their brand? What would you say you've either learned or something that you wish you knew before you started building your brand online?
Your page should not be private, or if you are selling something, you should let people see it.
Do people have private business pages?
Yes, they do, and I cannot understand. People go, well, follow me and I'll accept your request. No,
I want to see.
Not.
Yeah, interesting.
Absolutely not. And they go, well, it's private because people are nosy. Okay, that's the risk you run.
And it's social media.
Yeah, you have to be social. And I don't know what's wrong with people. Because common sense is not always common to everyone. And I say that loosely because I do understand that people just didn't think about it, or they're really nervous and they really want to control how their work is shown and who it's shown to. But if you are actually trying to sell and reach people who cannot see your work, your page should not be private. Also, you should be posting your work. If I go on your Instagram page and I know someone that I love dearly and I buy products from them and support them 1,000%. I just had that conversation with them and I said, every time I go to your page, I don't see anything that you do. And I know you're amazing at it because I'm always giving you my money.
Mm-hmm.
But how would anyone else know? Because you're posting pictures of models or posting pictures of your favorite quote or shoes that you just bought. But the thing that you do the best, that you are trying to make a living at, we don't see that ever. Like, ever. Those first 9 squares on Instagram should clearly articulate what it is that you do.
That's good. Those
Anything that fits
squares
on your screen. That screen, without anyone scrolling down, I should not have to scroll down to find out what it is that you do.
To know right away. Oh, that's good advice. I love that, Andrea. Very good.
Thank you.
Did they understand, though, this idea of really, because really it's about allowing people to discover you, right? Discover your work if they don't know you or they come upon you or that kind of thing, as far as what we talked about earlier with it being private. But did the person you spoke to sort of get it after your conversation?
I think they did, but people have this concept, as do I, of I take the meat and leave the bones. With someone just gave me this quote and I'm like, how come I never heard of this thing of take the meat and leave the bones? I don't think they took all the meat.
Okay.
Like, I think they left a lot of it on the bones. But they'll understand eventually. But like I said, what it is that you want for people is not necessarily what they want for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that better than anyone else because people constantly go, well, why aren't you in Macy's? And I'm like, who told you I wanted to be in Macy's?
Right. Like people, so talk about that real quick. Is that something that that you thought about and considered along the way? Did you decide that, no, I just want to sell from my own stores?
When I started Pantora itself, I was 16 years old and my dresses were sold in stores throughout the country. Like my dresses and clothes were sold. And at one point I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I didn't want to. And people, even when people found out that my clothes were sold in stores, they were like, oh, you made it. Or they would be like, oh, well, it's not sold in this store, so I guess it's not that important. But the thing is, you can't allow other people to determine your success or define it. And we get so caught up in what it looks like to be successful versus like defining what it means to be successful ourselves. We get really caught up in that. Mm-hmm. And I know that because I have mentees and mentors. And when we discuss things, it's like, comparison is a thief of joy. And normally that's where people get caught up in success because it's like, what is the next person doing? Or, well, all the designers I know are sold in Bloomies. Like, okay, well, I don't want to be sold in Bloomies. Does that stop me from being successful?
Right. Is that the end all be all? Right.
Exactly. And I feel like that goes for anybody in any industry. Like, you really have to determine what success means to you. I remember sweeping. I got to work really early and I was sweeping outside of my storefront. And I put the broom back and I took one of the kids' dresses and it was a really nice day. So I hung up the dress in the middle of the doorway and I decided I'd work on it in the middle of the door, basically in the street. Mm-hmm. And someone pulled over and they go, well, why aren't you sold in here? Or I remember exactly what they said. They said, you should try and get your dresses in Macy's. And funny enough, years ago, I was in contact with Macy's and Macy's was trying to figure out how they could put Pantora in their store. And it didn't work out for whatever reason, but it didn't bother me at all. Like, I wasn't fazed by it at all. And I was like, well, I didn't tell you I wanted to be a Macy's. And I was like, well, you should try and get in some stores. Pandora Bridal is sold in stores. They're not just sold here. Mm-hmm. But even if it wasn't, like, that person felt the need to stop. A perfect stranger felt the need to stop and try to define my success.
Right. And you were
I wasn't good enough.
Yeah, because of what their standard of success is.
Exactly. And it meant absolutely nothing to me. But that takes time. Like, for it not to mean anything to you, it takes a lot of time because it can be painful because comparison is the absolute thief of joy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Mark Twain said that. I think that's where the quote is from. Yeah. Very good. Now, with Pandora Bridal, I know one of the sayings or the idea for it is dream in reality, which I love. Dream in reality. So for you, what would you say your dream is, or the dream that you want to make reality for Pandora Bridal as you move on from here?
It's so funny that you ask that, because people ask me that all the time. And it doesn't really even mean that at all. Like, it doesn't really mean like, pick a dream and make it reality. It kind of means there's absolutely no point in only allowing your dreams to come true while you're sleeping. It's like very literal. Like, people dream when they go to sleep. And I'm like, you should not only have to have dreams and allow them to live in your subconscious. Like, you should be dreaming in reality, like, all the time, constantly. Like, it should never be one thing at one time and it ends here. Like, it should constantly be a thing. And it can be so small, because sometimes I'm like, oh, I just wish this fabric would end up here. And I'm like, randomly, I'm like drawing fabric out. And I'm like, oh, I just created a textile. Send it to the beaters. So it's like constantly, like, you should constantly be dreaming and creating and doing something that's going to take you to the next level. It's just constant. And so I think that's the reality part of it. It should be a constant.
So it's more of a message than something aspirational.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I'm glad I asked then, because that was a message for me. Very good. So what would you say, though? I'm sure I shouldn't say I'm sure. Do you have a vision for what the next step is, or are you in the moment of where the business is?
It's so hard, because I really try not to get caught up in like 10 years from now or 5 years from now.
Right.
But I recently launched the Boundless collection, which is the 2018 bridal collection from Pantora. And it was very important to me to create wedding dresses, and not just create them, but to put wedding dresses on women that are never shown or showcased in bridal magazines, or people have this concept that it's a hard sell if I put it on a woman that looks like this. And in doing that, we created something called FST, which is Forgotten Skin Tones. And it's essentially a lining and illusion-based mesh that's created for women of all colors. So absolutely no one is excluded in the creation of that. There's so many wedding dresses that are made with a very nude lining or a nude mesh that's supposed to be illusion, because that's the new thing now, is people want to wear illusion everything. But it's hard to wear illusion if you're a little brown. Right.
Nude is relative to the person's perception of nude, right?
Exactly. And I wanted our nude to be very universal. And so it took me some time, but we created the FST line, which is a big portion of our Boundless collection. And so I kind of want to expound on that a little bit in our next collection. I definitely want to push it more and have a lot more brides wear, and a lot more brides know that we create it, because even when people come to our store and see our brown mesh, they get so excited, and it's like amazing to see. And when people, I don't know what I think, because I think I'm always surprised by the reaction that people have with our dresses, or even when they come to our store. I remember posting on Facebook, like, I can't believe this. People are coming to the store and asking for our dresses by their name, or asking for the Boundless collection specifically. And someone wrote something really silly, and they go, well, you named it. Isn't that what they're supposed to do? And I'm like, if you don't get off my page. but I'm like, you really missed the point. Like, I created something and people want it. And that was what's really important. So I want to constantly be doing that. I want to create something that people feel like people had an emotional attachment to this tapped into specific something. Yeah, and I want to evoke emotion constantly. Like, I always tell people, like, you can copy all day, but I don't want to copy people's work. I want to copy the emotion people felt when they saw it. So when I see something amazing, like, I try and remember exactly how I felt when I saw it. And if I could go create something and feel that exact same way, then that's how I'm going to copy. I can copy all day, but I only want to copy emotions.
I love that. I love it. Now, what would you say entrepreneurship has taught you about yourself as a woman?
We are much stronger than people allow us to believe. And it's very easy to be brainwashed. It's very easy to be brainwashed into thinking that the way you run your business, there's only one particular way, or selling is you have to have a particular style. I know selling here, I tell my girls, do not sell people dresses. Like, you're not allowed to just sell dresses. Allow people to want the dress, because I want you to ask for the sale at the end of the appointment, but I want you to ask for the sale knowing that it's the dress that they want and they're the happiest in it. So I think it's super important for us to be vocal and ask for things, but I don't want it to be forced on anyone. So as an entrepreneur and a woman, people tell you how things have to be done a very specific way, but you got to make your own rules.
Right. Excellent. You certainly sound like you make your own rules.
Yeah, we try here.
Yeah, it sounds like it
and
works
we break them all the time.
Right. It's fun breaking rules. I love that.
Yes, as long as you know them. You can only break rules that you know about.
Right. That's such a great, real quick, that's such a great point. Know the rules and then decide to break them.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So in closing, what would you say then if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally? Who would that be, and what would you say?
Wow. Wow. One person. So I need to thank one person. I'm thanking my mama. So, how do I start? So, I'm going to thank my mama, my mom. I'm over here calling her my mama. I'm going to thank my mom because it is very hard to do something that parents don't want you to do, and she allowed me to do it anyway. And even when I think I might fail, she reminds me that I won't. And if I do fail, there's nothing like getting up. Like, she reminds me that I have a cheering squad and that they're willing to dust me off anytime I fall. And they never fall short. So my mom is a constant reminder that if I fall, it is okay.
Yes, we love the support of moms, especially when they're nervous at first, right? They always, because they want the best for us.
Oh, my mom wanted me to be a lawyer, then she wanted me to be a nurse. She wanted me to be a whole lot of things, but I'm stubborn and she knew it was never going to happen, so she gave up.
Right. She gave up, but she didn't give up on you.
At all, like, ever.
Right.
But I guess that's the point of a mom, right?
Exactly. So tell us now how we can support you. I'll have links to everything. I'm sure people listening will want to know way before this, though, what the website is. So tell us the website, social media, and where we can find your stores.
So our website is pantorabridal.com, not to be confused with the jewelry store. It's Pantora, Pantora, bridal.com. You can find our Pantora mini selection. You can purchase online. We have accessories and dresses for your smallest wedding attendee and flower girl and birthday girl, like whoever is the cutest. You can buy dresses for them. And you can make your appointments to visit our store online. We will be launching our 2017-2018 bridal tour. We just wrapped up our 2016-2017 tour. So join our mailing list on our website. Our store is located at 230 and 241 Rogers Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're available via Skype and phone. So if you do not live here, but you would still like the Pantora experience, you can make a Skype appointment and we'll be available to you.
I love it. Thank you so much. This was so fun. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was.
It's fun for me. I know I'm being selfish right now, but you told me I'm supposed to say what I'm really feeling. Good. Good. Now, before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
Dream in reality. Dream in reality would be my advice. Make sure you are constantly dreaming. I know I'm being repetitive, but make sure you are constantly dreaming. If I could get a tattoo, that's what my tattoo would say. I just can't get one because I don't like needles. But if there was a daily reminder and a piece of advice that I constantly have to myself, it would say to dream in reality.
Thank you so much. Hold on for just a second.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Andrea Pitter of Pandora Bridal. Again, be sure to go to supportissexypodcast.com. Just search Andrea, Andrea, in the search box. Her show notes page will pop up with all of the resources that she mentioned, as well as how to get in touch with Pandora Bridal. You're going to want to check them out. Believe me, even if it's not wedding season for you, you'll want to check out her designs and all of the beautiful things that she's creating. All right. So thank you again so much for listening. I truly appreciate you. Wherever you're listening, please make sure that you are subscribed to the Support is Sexy podcast, because I want to make sure that you don't miss an episode. So whether that's on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher or Google Play or SoundCloud, make sure you subscribe. And if you love the podcast, please do me a favor and leave a review. Now, I would love, as I always say, a 5-star review, but any feedback that you give is so appreciated. Your reviews, your subscriptions, they really help me and the show. So I appreciate you being here, but I want to make sure you definitely subscribe. And if you feel like it, go ahead and leave me a review. All right. So again, thank you so much for listening. And now you know what to do. Go out there and create something sexy. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.